Two large, potent storm systems are going to be impacting the U.S. over the course of the next 7 days. So we're going to break down all the details for you in this update. Take a look at the expansion of the North American view on the water vapor imagery, and you can see what storm we're talking about. It really starts to wind up, especially as we head into Thursday. It's going to send spokes of energy in all along the West Coast. We're talking into areas of Washington and Oregon, Northern California heading into tomorrow, and then it'll swing down into Southern California. The problem with this storm, it actually sits off the West Coast for several days. It actually doesn't come inland until late Sunday going into Monday. And then when it does, we have yet another storm that's going to be making inland as well behind that one. So that's two powerful storm systems we're going to be talking about. But we're also going to be talking about the big warm up that's on the way. And look at the jet stream, folks. That is a massive difference from what we were dealing with last week. It is drastically rebounded. So all the cold air is lifted back up into areas of the Northeast and back up into Canada. And this ridge of high pressure is just going to be dominating much of the country with the jet stream so far north, well up into Canada. Highly unusual for the month of November. While we're waiting on the wings for this powerful West Coast storm, we're going to be baking in the warmth across the middle part of the country. And those aren't a misprint, folks. We're talking lots of 70s and 80s on the map. I mean, well above average, 10, 15, 20, 25 degrees above average. It's certainly not going to feel like the month of November by any stretch of the imagination. And this could be an extended warm up with the stallment of the West Coast system. It's going to put much of the plains baking into the November warmth, and that doesn't seem to go away. It's going to be lasting for a good 5, maybe even 7 days, with plenty of warm air to come and a lot of rainfall to come for the West Coast. So as we head into tomorrow, the Weather Prediction Center has already highlighted several areas of concern, and we already have a marginal risk for flash flooding and a slight risk in some of these areas located in yellow. So for those areas basically in Eureka and to Santa Rosa, down here to Modesto, Fresno, those areas back into Santa Barbara, we could be looking at some heavier rains, but not technically flooding rains. But once you get into San Francisco, San Jose, back into Sacramento, back into Redding, I mean, those areas could pick up some very heavy rainfall in a short amount of time. Not out of the question to have some flash flooding within that particular setup. And that spokes of energy, that low pressure center, is going to meander off the West Coast and now be highlighted more over Southern California. This will be during the day on Friday. Yes, they already highlighted Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, back into areas of Long Beach. Yes, we could be looking at some heavier flooding rains potentially. And this is going to be a compounding setup, right? So I showed you Thursday. This is Friday. Remember, it doesn't make landfall until Sunday or a Monday. And then we have another system. So this is going to be a daily rate event. And this is going to add up over time with some high winds along the coast and just some heavier rain. So this could really add up to some significant totals by the time it's all said and done. I mean, just between now and say Saturday morning, so we're talking the next 48, 72 hours, you can see where the rain is, right? The only action in town is mainly going to be off the West Coast, while much of the country is going to be under that ridge of high pressure, with the exceptions of the far Northeast. It's all about the West Coast when being raked with a conveyor belt of moisture. And you can see the graph. I mean, we've got up to 6 inches of rainfall. So the anywhere areas in red, easily that's 2 to 4 inches. And this is only over a 2 to 3 day time span. So along the coast, really for the entire state of California, and especially further south into Southern California, this will be adding up in a big way, with all the saturated soils and the with some higher winds. We could be looking at some toppled trees by the time we head into Sunday, when another system moves ashore and everything is completely saturated by then. not much place to put the water, and we could be looking at for extensive flooding concerns, more aggravated concerns by then, because this is Sunday, right? It's still literally off the west coast with that little vorticity that just kind of sitting and spinning. The area of low pressure pulling in that Pacific moisture and just dumping it inland, and that's when it's finally going to get into areas of, say, Nevada, places like Las Vegas. I mean, finally maybe even getting into the Arizona region, getting into Phoenix. So it's going to be staying in California predominantly for a good solid 3 days before it's even sharing any precipitation with really anybody. But it finally will do that as we head into later during the day on Sunday, because by the time we head into Sunday, we're talking some pretty significant mountain snows adding up. They've already got winter storm watches in effect for the Sierras, where a lot of mountain snows are going to be coming back in the picture. Likely that starts even into tomorrow, and then compounding for Friday, Saturday, heading into Sunday. While again, we still under the intrusion of the northwest flow up here into the northeast, they could be looking at some rain and some snow into some of the higher elevations and still have the lake effect snow to deal with as well. But heading into Monday, it's finally going to be moving inland. And as it does, it's going to spread the low pressure center over the southwest, and now going to be lifting up into Colorado. I mean, this has been a stubborn area of low pressure when just a couple of days ago, it looks like it was going to swing right across Texas. And of course, that's not going to be the case anymore for the weekend. It's high and dry under that ridge of high pressure. Now it's delayed and it finally moves ashore. And now that it's finally moved ashore, it's going to be moving well north. So it heads into Colorado, and actually Denver is still looking for their first flakes of the season. They haven't seen anything. It's very unusual to have this late in the season, and it has not had measurable snow in Denver because there really hasn't been too much cold air to work with out west, and it's all been on the higher elevation. So, and I think that may be still the case even as we head into early next week. It'll be snowing in the mountain ranges, but not maybe into the Denver area. That could change later on in the week for sure, but not exactly to begin the week for the 17th of. But look what happens, right? As soon as the system comes ashore, that's the second system that will be waiting in the wings with yet another surge of moisture off the west coast and dumping it back in to Northern California, and that will swing back into Southern California. But look what happens on Monday. I mean, we're already going to be heating up. This could be an extensive warmth, and this doesn't scream November, right? I mean, we've got 80s, if not 90 degrees in Dallas on Monday. That is crazy stuff, right? That is very unusual. I mean, when you're talking average highs or basically in the mid 60s by then. So that'd be 25 degrees above average. And yes, that could be record breaking temperatures if that was able to occur. But man, the ridge is the real deal, and it's going to be staying warm for an extended period of time. So I wouldn't put that out of the question by any of the stretch of the imagination. But what we're going to be finally seeing that's going to be on the move is that secondary low pressure. That's the one that's probably going to bring some snow back into Nevada and eventually head into western Colorado. That will bring more rain into Arizona as well. And as this continues to move across, it'll again run into that ridge of high pressure. So the breakdown over the next 7 days, I mean, the big warm up is real. It's on the way. So that polar vortex, if you will, that was locked in over the southeast is retreating, and now there's not much cold air with it, but the northwest flow coolness, where you are going to remain below average up here into areas of the mid-Atlantic and in the northeast, but everywhere else under that ridge of high pressure, it's nothing but dry conditions, and a lot of warmth is on your way. And the breakdown as far as precipitation, obviously where you under that ridge of high pressure, you're not going to get much rainfall. This is between now and say Wednesday morning. So for the next 7 days, so most, if not almost all the action is going to be out west with those two systems that's coming ashore. And yes, we could be looking at for, extensive, heavy rains, if not flooding concerns. Flash flood watches are likely going to be in effect, getting in some flood warnings across pretty much the entire state of California. Lighter amounts as you swing inland into the Four Corners regions, but good healthy dosing of rain back into Arizona and New Mexico, back into Utah, getting into western Colorado, while much of the central southeast will continue to remain on the dry side. But that changes. Of course, we're going to be getting beyond 7 days now, but a glimpse of what's to come in the middle to late half of next week. That's when we could be looking at more significant changes, at least for the middle part of the country, as we've got a massive dip in the jet stream again coming off the west coast. That's going to push a piece of energy out into this short wave out in the middle of the plains, and that may finally bring rain back in the picture, where they just haven't actually seen any for the entire month of November for much of Texas, much of Oklahoma, really into Kansas. They hadn't really seen any precipitation really for the entire month. For the first 3 weeks, it will be by then for November, but that's going to change, right? I think that's going to be sending some waves of precipitation for maybe later in the day on Wednesday and Thursday, and then a more significant system will really start to take shape maybe by the 21st time frame, and we could be looking at severe weather possibly by then. Again, this could change. This is getting to 8-9 days out, but definitely signs are on the table for at least the middle part of the country to have, you know, pretty significant changes after the big warm up comes for the next 5 to 7 days. So guys, I appreciate you watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update where I protect you before and after storm.